I've had a really, really lucky career in that I passed a book today on the way over here in my house, War Just's a series of short stories about Washington, D.C., and it's called The Congressman Who Loved Flaubert. And if I ever wrote about my own career, it would be the filmmaker who loved politics.
Yeah.
Or basically the guy who loved politics who became a filmmaker. But I always thought that, like how a minor league catcher is a really good manager, but not a really good catcher. Well, I wasn't a really good consultant, but I was a better filmmaker in politics. But I've been really lucky. I've been able to make every film I've ever wanted to make. When I got my PhD, all my graduate peers turned their dissertations into books, and I turned mine on black politics in the Mississippi Delta into a film. In some ways, coming here was a real blessing because I was able to make films, but at the same time, I got the best job you could possibly get, which is working at the University of Texas and helping to remake the radio, television, film department, which is now the best film department that you can actually afford to go to in the United States. No, I was teaching Southern politics over at Tulane, and I ruined a very good academic career. I think I was pretty bored teaching political science pretty quickly. I mean, I liked the analysis. I did pretty high-level math and statistical analysis on voter participation. I liked solving this stuff. I just didn't like writing the articles. It's New Orleans. I was there, and I don't know how many people here have ever lived in New Orleans, but it's a pretty loose place.
Yeah,
And,
that's an understatement.
So I mean, I got into political consulting. Jeff was my big campaign. I was playing in a lot of bands. I bumped into somebody who introduced me to somebody, and I made up the idea that I was going to be a filmmaker. I literally made it up, Don. And they said, well, sure. It was over at the PBS station over there, WYS, and they said, well, you can raise some money, we'll make a film. What can academics do? They can write grants. And so I wrote a grant, and I got a little bit of money, and we went over to Mississippi, and I was doing research, and I was trying to finish my dissertation at the same time, living in the Vicksburg YMCA, $2 a night and worth every penny in the summertime. I called up my friend Bob Clark, who was the first African-American elected state representative in the rural South since Reconstruction. I said, Bob, what should I do? And Bob goes, well, it's funny you had called, Paul, because I'm going to run for Congress. You should film me. And I said, done. And we raised a little bit of money, and we filmed him for about a week, and we edited it, and I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. It was just great. It's that very first clip that had the glitch in it, that's H. Rap Brown's brother, Ed Brown, for all you guys old enough to remember who H. Rap Brown was. And I'm sitting around in a truck driving around Mississippi. Ed's running Clark's campaign. I'm in my 20s. I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm surrounded by guys that I actually know who are friends of mine, I'm dragged along the line. My friend Jim Gilmore was at NYU Film School. Artist Mevin was a young African-American cinematographer from Chicago. And I don't know, it's like water skiing for the first time or something or other. It was just great.
And so the guy driving not driving, but the guy that was in it.
The guy was going to motivating people. I mean, think about this. You're sitting over there. He's talking to you. He's talking to me. And he goes, getting people to vote is like bringing people from one century to the next century. And he's pointing out the car to that courthouse. I mean, I almost drove off the road. I was so excited.
Wow.
Okay, we'll see you on election day. Okay.
Mississippi, whether because of itself or in spite of itself, is in the midst of transforming the kind of politics which it had practiced certainly prior to the 1965 Voting Rights Act. It was very difficult to organize because at the time that we came in here, you still had a kind of pervasive terror in this state, and there was a great deal of fear. Go left. There was a great deal of fear. And so getting people to come out here and walk up there to that courthouse and to talk to that circuit clerk about registering to vote was one hell of a thing. I mean, that was one giant step. That was walking from one century to the next century, in terms of going to that courthouse.
Who was the greatest politician you've seen in Louisiana during your lifetime?
My lifetime, it would have to be every time I shave and look in the mirror, I see him.
And, talking about outrageous characters, I mean, of course, Edwin Edwards. That was just amazing
Isn't that a wonderful quote? You know, we did it. We were there with him for like 20 minutes. He was going to lose that election to Buddy Roemer, and it was a terrible campaign. And we're trying to get him to say something interesting. And actually, I got a number of people from my class. I was actually going to show you guys what led up to this. It's about 4 minutes of nonsense. You know, asking him who's the greatest politician you ever saw. Huey Long, Lyndon Johnson. You know, and finally he gets it that we want him to talk about himself. Okay, and then you hear it, then I go in for the kill, and I go, who's the greatest politician you ever saw in your lifetime? And he looks at me and goes, every time I shave and look in the mirror. That's all we use.
That's great. Well,
A great man.
Well,
Saying it took one opponent an hour and a half to watch 60 Minutes, Edwards boasted that he couldn't lose unless he was found in bed with a dead girl or a live boy. And he was right. Populist in style, a powerful stump speaker, yet at ease with modern television campaigning, Edwards set the tone for politicians throughout the state.
Who was the greatest politician you've seen in Louisiana during your lifetime?
My lifetime, it would have to be every time I shave and look in the mirror, I see him.
the film that you made on Little Bighorn, that's a riveting scene there where he is singing his grandfather's death song.
Joe Medicine Crow's still alive. He's 100 years old.
Is that right?
Yeah. He won a Silver Star in World War II for counting coup on German soldiers and stealing horses. He was one of the first Native Americans to get an advanced degree in anthropology. He's an amazing guy. He told hilarious stories about being in Los Angeles in the 1930s. He said he tried to get work on a Hollywood film that wanted Indians. And he said he couldn't get any work because his nose wasn't big enough and all the Indians were all Jews and Italians. But he kept wanting me to sing the song, you know, and I wasn't quite sure how it fit in. I didn't realize it was his grandfather's death song. His grandfather was one of the scouts who was smart enough to get the hell out of there before they all died.
Right, right. He lived to tell the story.
Yeah, so Joe followed us out onto the battlefield. It was thundering, and he says, "Can I sing the song?" So he put up a, apple box on there, and he sings the song with the thunder in the background. It's I guess one of those revelations.
Did you rig that? You had to rig that.
No, it's real thunder.
I'm kidding.
We might have made it a little bit louder.
Yeah. Well, it was a great scene. That was a really great scene.
A third of Reno's men were now killed, wounded, or missing. Downriver, Custer was unaware of Reno's route.
One of the scouts, White Swan, and also another one by the name of Gozehead, took off their civilian clothes, started putting on their Indian battle dress and all. And they were singing their medicine songs or war songs or sometimes called death songs. The scouts told Custer they would all die that day. My grandfather was one of Custer's scouts, and he taught me his war song.
Ignoring their warnings, Custer discharged his Indian scouts, but he needed more men to attack. He scrawled an order for reinforcements and sent it back to Benteen.
The other, of course, very seriously, because I'm a big fan of your documentary about George Wallace, Setting the Woods on Fire. It's a fabulous, all of your work's fabulous, but it's a particular subject that I'm very interested in anyway. And to see that scene, actually that video of Wallace puffing on that cigar, how did you do that?
Well, Wallace was living alone in his house in Montgomery. He'd been paralyzed for 20 years, and he literally used to watch videotapes of himself. It was weird. And the first time I went over to see him, the state police said, "Well, you go through this door and you'll see him." And I opened up the door; it's his bedroom. So, and remember, all these films are collaborations. You know, every single thing over here is why I put those credits up there. It's not just me. It's I'm working with Dan McCabe, who was the best editor I've ever worked with for music. And Dan and I were co-producing, and Dan said, "Why don't we film him but let's drape the entire room in black and just film it. And so it was the last film I think I did in film. And so we draped it all in black. We lit it, the way, very dramatically. And we just filmed him for an hour and a half. And because he couldn't really speak, so he's smoking the cigar, he's falling asleep, he's looking up. The smoke goes up with the cigar. And at the very end of the film, where people are talking about, did he really repent? Did he not repent?
Right.
And they're disagreeing, and all of a sudden he looks right into the camera. It's like you're looking into his soul. It was an hour and a half of amazing material, and it just looks beautiful. And it was Dan's idea. So,
It's an incredible documentary.
In the name of the greatest people that have ever trod this earth, I draw the line in the dust and toss the gauntlet before the feet of tyranny, and I say segregation now, segregation tomorrow, and segregation forever.
Everybody seems to be here. Everybody white. The city auditorium is packed with sweating, jostling bodies. Two little blonde-haired boys try hard not to get stepped on as their mama, holding tight to their hands, steers them through the cheering crowd. A band is playing Dixie as the people clap their hands in time. And someone is waving a Confederate battle flag back and forth, back and forth. Sam and I stand together, understanding only a little of what is being said. The governor talks about a lot of things, but mostly he seems to be telling us that we are better than the Negroes. We had not known that we were better than anybody.
Here's a man of great talents, great skill, great charm, great everything. But it was all focused in the wrong direction, in the pursuit of power for the wrong reasons. That's the great tragedy of George Wallace.
How in the name of common sense can you be too strong about segregation? You either for it or you're against it. They're not in the middle ground as I know of.
George Wallace caused a lot of suffering and a lot of misery, and I believe a lot of deaths.
I don't think the governor owes anyone an apology. How do you blame Governor Wallace, who stands with his traditions and customs and state and defies an entire national establishment? Maybe you can say the cause was wrong, but I think the man in many ways was right.